In this lesson, we're going to examine the idea of where geometric lines can intersect. In other words, we want to find ourselves a point of intersection. So to do that, we'll go back and look at our algebraic techniques from last unit first. I have a system of equations I want to solve. I want to find their POI. I can do that by using comparison, making the two equations equal to one another. If they're equal, then they can be solved. And I can do this with my numbers on one side and letters on the other. So I'll go 8x is negative 2. In other words, x is negative 2 over 8, or in this case, negative 1/4, or 0.25. That's okay to use decimals, especially if they're nice decimals. Once I know x, I need to go back and find y, and I can do that by using equations, either one of the two. I'm going to fill in the x that I know, and then I'm going to calculate all this, and I end up with 2.75. So therefore, our POI is negative 0.25 and 2.75. What I want to do today is take that idea and apply it to these geometric lines we've been looking at. In other words, I want to be able to find centroids, circumcenters. Okay. Centroids refers back to medians. We also call it the center mass just to point that out. So if I want to find a centroid, I'm going to need to find medians, in particular two of them. Okay, reminders, to find a median, you have to go from the given vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. I also am going to look at today circumcenters. A circumcenter is the center of an inscribed circle. So we talked about that one. If I had a circle and I drew my triangle on top of it, okay, perpendicular bisectors, which is what we're looking at here, bisector, bisector, will meet in the exact center of the circle. Okay. There is a third one. We could look at an orthocenter, but orthocenters themselves are not very useful, so we're not going to spend any time on them. Okay, so we could do it, but there's not really much of a point to doing it because they don't really have all that much meaning. So let's get started on these questions, and I would definitely print this one off because there's a lot of work to do in these questions. So question 1. A triangle has vertices, M, N, and P. Let's draw that out to get started on it. M, N, and P. M is at 2 and 4. So 2 and 4. N is at 8 and 2. And P is at 4 and negative 2. Draw a triangle. I want to find its center of mass. The center of mass is where medians meet. So I need to figure out two medians. I have choices here. I can do the median from M, from N, or from P. I'm going to start off by doing the median from N. So I'll write that down. Median from M. Well, median from N has to go to, where does it end up? It goes to the midpoint of the opposite side. In other words, NP. So let's find that. I can figure out what that point is, NP. So I need to do 8 plus 4 over 2, and 2 plus negative 2 over 2. So that's going to be 12 over 2, which is 6, and 0 over 2, which is 0. So 6, 0, which is right about there, I can draw my line now. Obviously, it's not drawn to scale, okay? I want to find the equation of that line. To do that, I know where it starts, start at M, and it's going to end at midpoint, 6, 0. So I can find a slope. And let's find that slope. So 0 minus 4, y2 minus y1, and 6 minus 2, x2 minus x1 gives me negative 4 over 4, which is negative 1. There's my slope. And there's no perpendiculars involved in here. I've found the slope right off the bat. Okay, I got mx plus b, but I need to find b. I need a point. So I have a choice. I can use the midpoint, or I can use m. Doesn't make a difference which one. I can use the midpoint. I like the number 0. It's a handy number. Gets rid of things. Okay, so I got 0 equals negative 6 plus b, or in other words, b is 6. So now I got y equals m, negative 1x, plus 6. There's our equation. Done. But here's the problem. That's only the first part of the equation, or problem, because I need to find two medians so I can figure out where they meet. So we need to do the next one. So let's try, I don't know, let's try the median from P next. Median from P. So put that right underneath here. Median from P. Now if you want to do median from N, that would work too. So nothing wrong with that. Where does it go? It starts at P and ends up at the midpoint of MN. But I don't know that yet, so we need to find it. Midpoint of MN is 4 plus 8 over 2 and negative 2 plus 2 over 2. What's that going to give us? 4 plus 8. Oh, sorry, hang on, that's the wrong numbers. That was the wrong points. All right, be careful here. Don't want to mess all this up. Let's change the whole question. I was doing Pn. I need to do Mn. 2 plus 8 over 2. And 4 plus 2 over 2. That's going to give us 10 over 2, which is 5. And 6 over 2, which is 3. That makes more sense. 5 and 3. That's about there. Midpoint. 5 and 3. Here's my line. I want to find the equation of that line, which means I need the starting point and the ending point. I need to find my slope. So slope, so we can see it. 3 minus negative 2 and 5 minus 4. That will give us 1 over 5. Okay, oh, that's not right. 5 over 1, which is just 5. So I've got myself a slope. I need a b. To find b, I need to use a point. I have choices. I have the starting point or the ending point. I'm going to use the ending point because I can see it. It's right here, x, y. And they're also positive numbers, which I kind of like. All right, so 3 equals 25 plus b. 3 minus 25 is b. b is negative 22. So y equals 5x minus 22. Whew, got ourselves an equation. The question wasn't find the equations. The question was find the center of mass. In other words, where the two equations meet, the POI. So let's find that POI. How do I do it? I've got one equation here. I've got a second one here. I want to know where they meet. In other words, where does that equation come out to this equation? Okay. Oops, that was a minus 22, sorry. Let's solve that. Numbers on one side, letters on the other. Will give me negative 6x and negative 28. Okay, it doesn't divide very nicely here, so we're going to get negative 28 over negative 6. I can reduce that. That gives me 14 over 3. Okay, I don't want to round it to decimals because it's not a very nice decimal. But I'm not done. I need the y that goes with it. What do I know about y? Well, from this equation right here, y is 5x minus 22. Or you could use the other equation, your choice. But we know x. 5 times 14 over 3 minus 22 will give us 70 over 3 minus 22, which isn't very nice, but we can add these fractions together. This is like 66 over 3, which is 4/3. Okay, so for part A, and we've only done part A so far, our centroid, our center of mass, is located at an x value of 14 over 3 and a y value of 4 over 3. Whew, that was painful. That was lots of parts and pieces. But I have something for you guys. A little bit of a shortcut. Okay, so here's an idea for us. A center of mass. What is it? It's the exact center of that triangle, How do we find the centers of things? We find the centers of things by finding averages. So a shortcut for a center of mass. I know you're going to say, hey, I did a shortcut. Why did I do this at the end? But I got to figure out where it's coming from first. But if you want to find the exact center of a triangle, you can find it by averaging your vertices. So the midpoint of three things. So if we go back to the question for just a second, m was 2, 4. N was 8, 2. And P was 4, negative 2. It turns out that if I average those three values, in other words, if I add them all together, 2 plus 8 plus 4, and I divide by 3 this time, oops, and we do the same thing with the y's, so 4 plus 2 plus negative 2, but again divide by 3, I'm going to get 2 plus 8 plus 4 is 14 over 3, and 4 plus 2 plus negative 2 makes 4 over 3, and that is the centroid. So from now on, if I ask you for a centroid or a center of mass, don't go through the process of finding medians and then POI. Use my shortcut. If I ask you for the medians, well, then we got to find lines. But if I ask you for that dot, use the shortcut. Okay, there's part A done. Just part A. That's all we've done so far, okay? Let's do part B. Part B is find the coordinate of the circumcenter. And I'll tell you right now, there's absolutely no shortcut for a circumcenter. Okay? You do have to do it the long way. So what does that mean? What that means is we're going to take the same picture. I'm going to redraw it, okay? Same points we had a second ago. Start all over again, basically. Okay, so M is 2 and 4. Draw this a little bit bigger. M is 2 and 4. N was 8 and 2. And P was 4 and negative 2. And if I'm trying to find a circumcenter this time, a circumcenter means if I were to inscribe this on a circle, I'm going to find the exact center of that circle. And I can do that by using perpendicular bisectors. I need 2 of them again. So the first one I'm going to do, just for fun, is I'm going to do the perpendicular bisector of, which one should we do? Let's do NP. Okay, so I know I can go through NP, through the middle of it. Oh, I need to find the middle of it. That's the first step. The midpoint of NP, which I think we found already, right? Like, there's no point redoing math that you've already done. If we can go back to the previous one and find the midpoint of NP, which I think is right here, 6, 0, then don't do the math again. Just write it down. 6, 0. Okay, that's right there. That's what I need that. And I need to be perpendicular to that. So it needs to go through at a right angle. A right angle to what? To the slope of NP. So I need to do that next, the slope of NP. Now we haven't done that yet. We haven't found any slopes along the edges. We've only done them through the middles. So we actually have to do this math. 2 minus negative 2, and 8 minus 4 gives us 4 over 4, which is 1. But we don't want that slope. We want the perpendicular slope. So we got to flip 1, which still makes 1. And we need the negative. And now we can find our equation. mx plus b. mx plus b. The only point we for sure know is the midpoint. So 0 for y, 6 for x, solve for b. Let's do our solving here. We'll get 0 equals negative 6 plus b, or in other words, b is 6. So y equals mx plus b. There's our perpendicular bisector of NP. You need 2 perpendicular bisectors though, right, to find a centroid, to do a POI. So let's go back and see what other midpoint we already found. The other midpoint that we already found was, midpoint, here's the midpoint, 5, 3. It was the midpoint of MN. 5, 3 is the midpoint of MN. Midpoint 5, 3. Well, that's useful because I can do the perpendicular bisector of that. Okay, I already got myself a point. The perpendicular bisector has to go through midpoint of MN, which is 5, 3. So let's do step 2. Let's find the slope of MN. Slope of MN would be 4 minus 2, and 2 minus 8, which will give us 2 over negative 6. reduces to negative 1/3. Good news is we don't want that slope. We want its perpendicular. So I flip it over and it becomes 3. And switch your sign too. Okay, we want our equation, mx plus b. The only point that we know for sure is that midpoint. So 3 for y, 5 for x, solve for b. So I'll get 15 plus b, 3 minus 15 is b, negative 12 is b. My equation is 3x minus 12. Good. We got ourselves 2 equations. The question wasn't find the equation, it was find the circumcenter. The circumcenter is the point where they meet. It's right there. How do I find POIs? I take my equations and I make them equal. So y equals y. What do I got? I got 3x minus 12 and negative 1x plus 6. There is no shortcut. I said that at the beginning. I'm going to say it again. You actually have to do the math this time. Okay, so 18 divided by 4 comes up to a decimal. Nothing wrong with decimals. It's a nice decimal. I know x. Let's go back and find y. I can use the equation from above. I know x. X is 4.5. We can do our math here, and we should get 1.5. Therefore, circumcenter is 4.5 and 1.5. The exact center of that circle. Okay, there's part B done. That's not the whole question, though. That's why we're only doing one question this whole lesson today. Part C, determine the area of the triangle. Area of a triangle. How do I find the area of a triangle? Area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Huh. But I need to know how long the base and the height are. In other words, I'm going to need some distances. So, I have a formula for distance, and I can use any one of my sides as the base. All I really need to do is find the height. So, let's start all over again. Let's draw that picture out one more time. Okay, our points were 2 and 4, 8 and 2, and 4 and negative 2. I want to find the area of this triangle. So I'm going to decide, just a random choice here, that my height for me is going to be the one that goes from P this way. I'll call that my height. So this would make this my base. Okay, to find this height right here up the middle, makes a right angle. Oh, it makes a right angle. So that means I can find the slope. I can find the slope of MN. The slope of MN would be helpful because it's perpendicular to my slope. I think I found the slope of MN somewhere along the line here in one of my previous things. The slope of MN, we did right here. It was negative 1/3. Well, that's useful. I don't have to recalculate it. But that's not the slope I want. I want the perpendicular slope, which I know that. That's 3. So right off the bat, I've got myself a slope. That's step 1 and step 2. Step 3 is I want to find the equation of this line. So I fill in what I know, 3x plus b. To find b, I need a point. Well, I know it goes through 4, negative 2. I can see it. It's in my picture. So I can solve for b. And if we do that, I get negative 14 equals b. So this equation is y equals mx plus b. Okay, I got myself the equation. But the problem is I didn't really want the equation. I want to know how long it was. So I need to know how long this green line is. I know where it starts. I don't know where it ends. I need to find that point. In other words, I need this POI. To find POIs, I need 2 equations. So now that we have the one line, we need to figure out the equation of the other line. So that way we can find the POI. So we need the line that goes this way, the line of MN. Now to do that, we need a slope. So let's find the slope of MN. That will be 4 minus 2 and 2 minus 8, which is 2 over negative 6. or if you will, negative 1/3. Because we're just finding the line directly, we can use either of the 2 points, m or n. I'm going to use, I think I'll use m. It's got smaller numbers. Right, so m is 2 and 4. So 4 for y, 2 for x, and let's solve for b. So what do we got here? We've got negative 2/3 plus b, 4 plus 2/3. And we have to leave it in fraction form because we have ugly, messy decimals. So b will be 14/3. Okay, what do we got? Y equals negative 1/3 x, and b was 14/3. So we have the two equations, the base and the height. They're lines. We want to figure out where they meet. If we figure out where they meet, we can then find the length of them. So we need that POI right in the middle there. The POI between the green line and the blue line. So what do we got? We got y equals y, or if you will, negative 1/3 x plus 14/3 has to equal 3x minus 14 at some point. Let's figure out where that point is. Negative 1/3 minus 3, negative 14 minus 14/3. Use your fraction button, or just put them together. And on this side, we will get 56 over 3. Okay. This is the same thing as saying that. So in other words, x is 5.6. Once we get x, we need to go back and find y. And we know y is 3x minus 14. That's the nicer of the two equations, right? So we can fill that in. And we'll get a y value, or you should get a y value of 2.8. Okay, so our POI is 5.6 and 2.8. Now, why did we want that? The question was, what was the area? So this point here is 5.6 and 2.8. We can find area by doing base times height divided by 2. In other words, I need the length of the base and the length of the height. So I need to go back to the beginning again here and say, I have to figure out how long the base is, use my distance equation from m to n. And I also need the distance equation to go from P to the midpoint of the opposite side, or sorry, to the point of intersection on the opposite side. So I need to find two distances now. And yes, I know this is a long question. Okay? Don't worry, you're only doing one. So let's find our distances. The distance from m to n is the square root of m to n, m to n. So I'll just write the points down here. M was 2 and 4, and n was 8 and 2. And that's straight from our diagram. So x2 minus x1 squared, y2 minus y1 squared, square root of 6 squared and negative 2 squared is the root of 40, which comes out to approximately 6.32. That's one of our distances. That's the base. We also need the distance of the height, the length of the height. So that distance is also a square root of, and this one we're going from P, which had the coordinates 4 and negative 2, to the POI, which we just see right there is 5.6 and 2.8. So same procedure, 5.6 minus 4, 2.8 minus negative 2 will give us 1.6 squared and 4.8 squared. And if we do that, we end up with the square root of 25.6. It comes out to approximately 5.06. This is my height. Okay, so now we're ready. Therefore, the area is base times height divided by 2, or in our case, 6.32 times 5.06, all divided by 2, which gives an answer of approximately 16.0 units squared. Okay, now that's a long one. There's a lot of parts and pieces in there. So some big ideas I want you to try and remember. We're going to practice these over the next couple of days. A median makes centroids, and there's a shortcut for them. Orthocenter comes from perpendicular bisectors. Unfortunately, no shortcut. And the last one, where we just did area is base times height divided by 2. So it's not really a median or a bisector. It's actually an altitude that we found. But we could use that to find other things. Okay, that's the end of that lesson. There's a little bit of homework you should probably try. Oh, I'll go to the end here. There's 4 questions. Okay, we're going to just work on these. There's no new ideas. We're just putting them all together here, okay?